useState is one of the most popular hooks in React. useState was introduced in React 16 and it is still continued to be widely used in React applications. In this video, we're going to learn what is useState, why you might need it, and how to use it. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Shruti Kapoor and I'm on a mission to make you the best developer you're meant to be. So if you're ready to learn useState and understand what this hook is all about and why it's being used everywhere, let's get started. We're going to understand how useState works by using this app and building a name component. Let's add an input field here. I want that when I add text in this input field, the text should be displayed on the page. Let's add a label to this field and also attach an onChange event listener. Now let's actually create this function called handle name change. This function gets called in anytime there is something inputted in the field. So anytime there is something typed in the field, this function gets called. We can test it by opening our console. And we notice here as we type, we'll see the value that is entered. Now I want to display the name that's entered on this page so that if I enter my name, Shruti, I want the text to say, hello Shruti. So I want to insert a new element here that should say the name or the value that was entered in the input field. How can I do this in React? Let's first create a div element where I'll add the value, hello George, and I want this value to dynamically update as and when the name is getting typed. Let's also clean this up so we're actually using semantic HTML, which is paragraph tags, instead of just a plain div. So I need a way to pass the data that was entered in the input field to the app that I have created so that I can update the paragraph tag. In vanilla JavaScript, you can imagine that this can be done by finding the element in the DOM using document.querySelector, maybe an ID or something like that, capturing the value and setting it to the element using one of the DOM APIs like inner HTML or text. But since this is React and it has virtual DOM, this approach of getting the actual DOM element is not recommended. However, we have a better way to do this in React. One way to do this in React would be to create a variable called name, which I'll initialize with my name and update George to that variable name. And then in my handle name function, I'm just going to add the value of the current target value to name. So now you'll notice that my name is updated on the page. But what happens when I change from Shruti to something else? So if I write George here, does the value update? It doesn't actually update. Why is this happening? This is happening because React does not know that the variable name controls the state of this component, which means that when name updates, React needs to re-render this component and update the value that's being displayed. How can we fix this? We can fix this by telling React that it needs to track the variable name, or in other words, define that the variable name controls the state of this component. And if the variable name changes, this component should update and re-render, and thereby updating the value that is shown on the page. And this is where useState is helpful. So let's create that. Since useState is a React hook, it can be called like a simple function. useState, one important property of a React hook is that it needs to be called at the top of the component. So we'll call useState at the top here. useState also accepts an initial value, which we'll define as our name, Shruti, and useState will give back two values, which we can destructure from this, being the state variable name and a setter for that state variable being setName. Now, we have let React know that instead of name being just a variable, it's now a state variable. So now every time name updates, React will know that it needs to re-render this component. And now instead of setting name to be just event target value, we're going to use the setter function and set it to the value of event target value. This is important because in React, when using a useState hook, the value of the state variable must not be reassigned. It needs to be set using the setter function, which is setName here. So let's update this to be setName and pass in the same value back again. Let's clean up our code and also import useState from React. And now when we type our new name in, the component re-renders and we also see the new name as it is getting typed in. Let's clean up our code and move this code into a new component called name. Now this code looks cleaner. I have a new component called name. Now here's something really cool about useState. The state of a component is local to the component instance, which means that if I was to duplicate this name component and create another one, I'll have two components on the page. And if I update just one of them, update a value in this input field, you'll see that only that component's name has re-rendered, but the other component stays isolated, which means that state between the two instances of a component, even though if it's the same component, remains isolated. So you can be sure that state between one component does not bleed out to another instance of the same component. So that's useState. Hope that helps. Catch you in the next video.